Okay, so a couple things this morning. For those of you who are new to 1 million.
So now I'm upstairs in downtown Cedar. I am the lonely founder. Problem. The more I kind of looked into this, especially being in college, we have a lot of group projects and they suck. And especially doing it remotely is even worse. But when we're together and we have 4 laptops going, it's hard to kind of stay on pace and collaborate. And so that's kind of the real overarching focus of ThoughtTop, is to help promote collaboration and innovation, just because I don't think innovation happens through one person. I think it's a group effort. So another problem is that there's this whole economical friendly vibe going around right now, and the ThoughtTop is just a great way to eliminate Post-it notes. It helps cut down on paper reduction, some electricity costs and stuff like that. It's truly the most economical product out there, and even better than other traditional whiteboards that you can wheel around or hang on the wall, just because it's just basically, the bare bones, the skin, and nothing else. So, introducing, I'm struggling today. So the solution, ThoughtTop. So transparent adhesive whiteboards for walls, desks, laptops, basically any other thing that you could ever think of. It adheres on, and I can, if you just want to wheel it around for me. So, bundled with every ThoughtTop comes a certain marker. It's called a wet erase marker, and it doesn't come off with any abrasions, just a little bit of water. So you're able to create outlines, skeletons, calendars, business model canvases that have, changing different sizes and everything else like that. It's a major reduction in capital. Some of the whiteboards that you're able to wheel around in offices cost up to $600. Well, through this, we're able to cut down on costs by over 400%. And I just don't think that traditional whiteboards that hang on walls are truly affordable for startups and classrooms especially. And then in addition, all entrepreneurs, startups, bloggers, they use a lot of Post-it notes. So I really like the thought of being economical and cutting down on those costs. I know this slide is really cluttered and everything, and I'm not going to spend much time on it, but I just kind of wanted to point out that there's so many uses for whiteboards out there. And it's just whiteboards are just so universal for everyday tasks. So I don't know if anybody's ever seen this before, but it kind of explains using 2 different markers. So we have the wet erase outline, and then this is a dry erase filling in the side, and then the Batman theme song's going in the background, but that doesn't matter. So you can clearly erase the dry erase, and then you can erase the wet erase at any time. So this works really well for laptops because you can always create it and it will come off with your hands or inside your cases. Works great with calendars, or like I have one in front of my desk that I use and write all my notes and my calendars and everything. It doesn't come off when my hands brush across it. So the competition, the first and most foremost would be Board, and they're based out of, I think it's Texas. And what they do is they do the exact same thing, except they're into a ton of different products. They're into the paint for the walls. They're into the traditional, just the white adhesive boards and everything. And what was really cool about this is that this idea that I'm working on was actually funded by Mark Cuban, who funded Board, so he's a co-investor with that. The sign shops, all of these different companies get the product from 3M. So sign shops really deal it out, but nobody knows that whiteboards exist, these adhesive whiteboards exist at sign shops. So I think that's a little bit of competitive advantages I have as I focus on this one product where people know it's there. Traditional whiteboard companies, hanging on the wall, rolling ones, and then Post-it, Post-it notes. So they've come out with adhesive whiteboards that just replace traditional whiteboards. So when those get ruined and stained and ghost and everything, you can just lay it over that. So target market, basically anybody who ever has had a whiteboard in the past, anybody who should have a whiteboard. You can probably notice some people in the room that are up there. So mainly just the entrepreneurial community and especially teachers with libraries, classrooms on top of student desks. There is a classroom. There's a school here in Iowa, an elementary school. I don't remember where it's at, but they actually have every classroom. Each student has a whiteboard desk, and so I think that's really innovative and helping students become more creative. And students learn in so many different ways now. Some audibly, visually, and I think a lot of us learn by doing. So I think that's a really great advantage for students to have, is to be able to work through the problems themselves. So a little bit about pricing. So per square foot, my product costs about 80 cents, and then a marker costs about 40 cents, which varies greatly from the traditional whiteboards and the sign dealers. The profit margin that these people, or that writing board and different adhesive companies, is about 90% right now. Huge margins. Traditional whiteboards, I think it was $32 a square foot is what they're costing right now. We cost about 80 cents a square foot, and then sign dealers, writing boards, they're charging about $3.40 a square foot. So goals and stuff. So the main reason I'm really interested in this is I want to help the eco-friendly movement. I think this could really be a great adaptation to all offices, co-working spaces, entrepreneurs to help cut down on paper reduction and stuff like that. Increased collaboration. I think collaboration is kind of dying out. I think everything's, don't get me wrong, I'm not against technology or anything, but it's just so much easier rather than sending an email or something on Trello than to just call it out with somebody and work on it right then. Make whiteboards universal. So I just can see every surface as a creative surface, a place to decorate, plan stuff and everything, and then increase productivity. So I don't know what I had on time, but I'm done. So thanks.
All right, Laura, any questions? Any questions?
Yes. I'm going to get you to change your terminology. Make whiteboards universal. Stop saying whiteboards. You're trying to differentiate yourself from whiteboards, so do not use that term. Coin a better, newer term. How about something like whiteboard or something along those lines? But you're using your competitor's terminology. Don't do that.
Okay. Nice. Hi, Josh.
What about non-transparent adhesives?
Yeah.
The one thing that gets me sometimes, especially with the backs of laptops with the logos and stuff like that they have on there, sometimes it gets, I think, a little muddy when you're writing across it. Are there other color options or anything like that that you can do that are like just sort of a matte rather than transparent?
Yeah, are you just talking about like the regular white? Yeah. You can get them in any color: purple, green, yellow, all different sorts of colors. And I just went to a sign shop the other day, and they quoted me. It was the other one. It was $6.75 a square foot for the other colors. The main reason I'm kind of focusing on the clear stuff is just because it's one, it's a great product, and then two, it beats out the competition for what Writing Board has right now. They currently have clear adhesive, whiteboards and everything, but it's basically just a big roll of packing tape. It sucks. So the difference between that and mine is mine has a little bit better of an adhesive, and it's also a lot thicker, so it doesn't feel so cheap and tacky, pun intended.
Can you print on these?
Yep. So you can print ego-inducing logos if you want and just cover the whole thing. Business model canvases, value proposition, is it value proposition canvases? Yep. So you can do anything you want with it. The reason I had mine set up with, I drew the business model canvas on mine, is because I like the idea of being so, what if I have a bigger value proposition category? Well, I can always change that. And I can just move the lines over. So rather than being locked down and printing, I can just make my own.
So, like, could I just, if I were to order one, could I cut it to any size I want, and then could I just run it through a printer? Or would I have to get it printed by you some special way, or?
Yeah.
You know, like if I wanted one that was like a blank calendar that I can change all the time, so I don't have to go buy a new paper calendar every year, and I can just write in my dates and stuff like that from my desk. Could I get yours, and then could I find a generic calendar template and just run it through the printer, or could I like you said, put my company logo on it, or is that something I have to get through a sign shop or what?
The way that, and I'm not really too sure on this, on the feasibility and everything. I'm pretty new with ThoughtTop and everything, but the way that when I've been talking to these sign dealerships and everything, they're like, you can get these printed on, we'll cut them all for you. So really what we could do is just take in the custom order, outsource all the work, and then basically get you what you want.
Okay.
So.
Are you doing direct to customer? Or are you now talking about potentially going through sign dealers? What's your distribution model?
So originally I was B2C, but I think I'd rather go more B2B. So I'd rather sell to co-working spaces, libraries, schools, but selling B2C really isn't a big deal either. And then I'm not really too sure on the distribution model yet, to be honest. So I haven't gotten that far.
Could you license these? Like, so if I want a UNI one, could you put talk to UNI, put a logo on it, and sell it at the University Book and Supply, so I can get a UNI ThoughtTop for my laptop?
You'd have to pay licensing fees.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you should be able to do that.
I've never looked at that. So
I think that would be a big thing, just for
It would.
colleges, or especially if you're gearing towards students and stuff, to have a license going through university.
especially one for like all the students that live on campus, everyone has a desk. So.
Or even just, for their laptops.
What kind of feedback do you get from other students that you're talking to about this?
Yeah, they said that.
I'm not a student, but I'm like super brand loyal to this now. I have one on my table in my office, and I seriously use it every single day. Like, Mike and I will sit down and we'll map something out. Yesterday, Zach and I sat down and outlined a video, and I just write it down, take a picture of it, and it's great. So, love it.
Yeah, I second that. I have one on my desk too, and I use it constantly. It's my go-to at this point.
What do you guys say, Patrick? How much do you like it?
No, I like it too. The one thing for me, so I have one too, to figure out a way to build in a package with like your wet erase marker and some type of erasing tool. That's probably the struggle for me, is like now I have a bottle of water next to it so I can get my Kleenex wet to wipe it off. But if I had some way to just, like one of those.
I'm thinking about getting like wet wipes, like things that come out of the thing.
Wet wipes work really well.
There goes the eco-friendly side of it too.
Just a pro tip for everybody, the best way to clean whiteboards is actually hand sanitizer.
Really?
So for old ghosting and everything, if you put hand sanitizer or vodka or Everclear, it really works.
All your ideas thrown in. Spoke on his laptop last weekend.
But so I totally forgot to touch on this, but I did a little bit of a beta test, gave some out to some friends and other people on campus. Overall, it was an okay feedback. The biggest thing was just, one, it was the erasing was the big problem, just because it kind of smears when you erase it. So I haven't quite figured out that problem yet, but you'll I know. What?
You better shame.
Yeah, I was thinking like one of those old pens where you use like wet envelopes with,
Yeah.
and you can keep water in.
That's
to wet that down.
Yeah.
Yeah, we,
And then like have a little cloth that comes with it, you can just
Yeah.
wipe it off real fast.
yeah, we talked about that.
Do you currently sell the pens and everything with it?
Yeah, so with every ThoughtTop you buy, it comes bundled with one wet erase marker, just because it's a little bit harder to come by rather than the typical dry erase.
Okay.
But then within that, if there's a large enough order, we're able to co-brand the markers and get, so co-working spaces can get their logos on it along with mine. Libraries can get it on there and different stuff like that, so, which I think it's kind of a neat selling point too.
And you looked at the potential of getting white labeled wet erase pens like that?
Yeah, I mean, the cost for it was like 70 cents or something like that, even with both logos on there. So there was still super cheap and actually fairly decent quality pen marker.
Seems like it'd be a cool supporting product that you could effectively, make money off of as well, and keep those customers coming.
Right.
More than just the.
How do you determine what you're selling it for, selling price? What is your selling price?
So, basically I'm just competing against the only other product out there, which is the other clear. I mean, I'm not competing against it, but that's basically what I'm just pricing it off of.
Okay.
I'm just kind of going in there. I have a little bit better quality product. I don't charge as high. I just undercut them. So, I mean, that's just what I'm doing. I mean, I'm sure my profit margins are probably right around the same area, so just to get into market. I'm not really clear on what to do with pricing, to be honest. I have no idea what I'm doing, so.
It's a good place to start though.
Like the question is, the difference between covering this table and covering half the table to covering a quarter of the table, do you have
Oh,
like an idea, like are you by square foot, by
yeah. Well, I
font
mean,
size?
I charge, like, whenever I get like a custom order coming in, I
Mhm.
charge by the square foot. So I just do like an upcharge on the square foot, and just keep go up like that. And then include like marketers, marketing fees and stuff like that in there as well, so.
Okay. So what do you charge per square foot then? What's your-
So it costs me around $80 to $1.30 depending on the size of the roll I buy,
Okay.
and then I charge about $2.50 a square foot. So, which is still less than what my competition at $3.25.
So why do you think you need to be less than your competition?
That's a stellar question.
Yeah, I was going to suggest this may not actually exist, but I'm constantly amazed. I have this bar bet with people about like, what would you be surprised was invented today? Because it's down to like resurrection and time travel, basically. Everything else probably exists. So one of the things I was sitting here thinking is like, there's a lot of really interesting things going on in material sciences that has been already invented with no application. And in particular, I was thinking about the issue of taking, there are some molecular structures that can be changed with the introduction of something else into it really quickly. I would take a look around those applications, in particular, start with Amazon's Kindle tablet, because that started out as movable ink as a project, as opposed to actual display stuff. And then also see whether or not somebody's got a material that potentially you could like maybe snap the corner to change the structure of the surface so that it would like basically hold ink up until that point. Okay, now I'm done. Hit, just basically punch it molecularly, it drops all that stuff off, just releases it. I don't know if anything like that exists, but I'm constantly surprised at what does, and it might be worth looking around to see if that even is out there. Because somebody probably built that and never thought of that application.
Yeah. So kind of like an etch-a-sketch.
Etch-a-sketch.
Yeah, sort of like that,
Just kind
yeah.
of shake it.
Yeah.
It's done.
It's insane. So, like for example, like the ISO just announced yesterday that they're going to put printable screens on the outside of Johnny Walker Blue that also like will yell at you when you walk by with your mobile phone. I mean, if that exists, I mean that seems to be an advancement on the technology I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Not that I want to be yelled at.
Yeah, nobody does, but it's true.
Koozies out of these.
Oh, the whiskey place, you could
Right.
take the yellow hat.
Yeah. But check out material science. It's
One of
interesting. It's really
the one of the
interesting.
other ones was
Call me, this is my thing.
yeah.
All right, we have time for one more question, so we don't have one final question for Wes.
What is it you want from us, Wes?
There you go. Thanks,
Okay.
guys.
So I guess the biggest thing that I'm really struggling with right now is just basically getting my product name out there. I'm still, I'm still talking with people, but just on distribution channels, it's really hard, especially, I guess I'm looking more for guidance or feedback on how to get a product out there, especially a new product. bringing a new product into market that doesn't exist, so.
Have you thought about just like getting like a 2x4 or 2x3 sheet or whatever, rolling it up, and then putting a band around it with some sort of label on it or whatever, and like seeing if there's like the art store more downtown, they're a locally owned business, just seeing if you could stick 10 on a shelf with a little display and see if, you know, just something like that, if they'd sell kind of in a retail art
Okay.
art
That's a
outlet,
good
I don't know,
idea.
something like that. Just to make kind of like a standard product that you could put on a shelf and just see if people walking in off the street
Right.
would do it.
Is there a certain size that everybody
Yeah, or maybe at
tends
2
to
sizes that you
ask
had.
for, you know, so you can kind of identify what that standard would be? Yeah.
One for the standard 13-inch laptop.
Yeah.
Whatever.
And
And
then
I
the
really,
desktop.
I really like the size of mine. Mine's a foot by foot and a half, or a foot and a half by a foot.
Mhm.
And actually, it's like the perfect rectangle.
Oh, that's mine.
Yours is
I
enormous.
think yours is
I have
like
a huge one.
2x3, I would say.
Yeah. And it's nice because it fits perfectly on the table.
Yep. And we'll be able to do entire desks, so, like in a library, everything where all the group projects go on, so we'll be able to do like the entire desk where group projects meet, or even the walls right around there too, just for an example, so. We can basically do any size, any shape.
Also, one more thing, the school you're thinking of that has the whiteboard table, that's way for the elementary.
Thank you.
So they have all of their tables in their elementary whiteboard tables. It's cool.
But it costs them a lot more than it would have.
Yeah.
been to-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this would be a
Go
lot.
hit up the CF elementary schools. All right, thanks, Wes.
All right, good job.
Okay, 5-minute break and then we'll get started with our next presenter. So refill your coffee, you've got to throw in coffee. We are. All right, we're gonna get started. So our second presenter for the day, I'm gonna let her do her own introduction of the event. I'm gonna tell you her name is Heather Marquez. Let's give her a round of ovation.
All right, good morning, everybody. My name is Heather Marquez. I am with MindLinks LLC, and I am a leadership coach, speaker, and trainer. I work with women in business to help them identify their purpose, clarify their vision, and unleash their potential so that they can turn all the chaos they're experiencing in their business into order and become the women of influence that they're truly meant to be. I am also a Think Buzan licensed instructor for mind mapping. I'm the only licensed instructor for that organization in the state of Iowa. And Tony Buzan is actually the creator of the mind mapping process that so many people dabble in. In May, I will become certified in DISC training, which is a really new development for my company, so I'm pretty excited with that. And then I just became certified in Blueprint for Success, which is a training that helps people identify their passion, their purpose, clarify their vision, and really overcome some of those obstacles that are holding them back for the next step in their business. I have been in leadership positions for over 25 years, and no, I didn't start at 6. Somebody asked me that last week when I was at a conference. But I haven't always been this. I started out in my leadership journey as a 16-year-old, very tiny girl. And imagine, if you will, 5'1", about 30 pounds lighter, long hair, no makeup, obnoxiously huge glasses, and a complete wallflower, afraid to talk to the world. So I started my journey as a cashier with Walmart, and 2 months in, my store manager handed me the keys and said, "Your supervisor called off. I need you to take charge and run the team for the night." What? Really? I'm 16. What are you talking about? So he showed me a couple of key things and left me to it. What I realized very quickly was it didn't matter that I had the keys. It didn't matter that I was being called a supervisor for the night. It didn't matter that I was really, really effective in my job. What it came down to was I hadn't created a level of influence with the people that I was supposed to be leading that night. And through a series of events over a progression of my career, I came to the understanding that leadership is really about influence. And that comes down to people. So that gave me a passion for teaching leadership and helping others. Throughout my career, I had been offered multiple promotions, and I turned them down one after another, thinking I wasn't ready. Well, according to the Harvard Business Review, women, if they have 5 qualities of 6 necessary qualities for a job, will turn the promotion down. Men will apply if they only have 1. So that is a really huge limiting factor for women in our careers, which could lead to the fact that Iowa right now is ranked last, dead last, number 51, behind the District of Columbia even, for women in business. And that measures the growth of women in businesses, and that measures the economic impact for women in business. So through my career, what I have realized is there's a huge gap. Men have a great network that's been building over a long period of time and a lot of camaraderie. In my generation, for women, it was highly competitive. It was claw your way to the top and don't share anything so that you could beat somebody else in getting there. What I learned about 1.5 years ago when I joined the John Maxwell team was that's not a really good, productive way of life. It really comes down to collaboration. And if I can say one thing about that team, it is they are the most collaborative people out there. So through a series of the last 1.5 years, meeting with certain mentors, partnering with my coach, and now I actually work with 3 different coaches, I have developed my skills as a coach, and I was already doing the training throughout my career in retail, which has led me to opening my own organization for leadership coaching and training. But because of my journey, because of those statistics with women, I am very passionate about impacting women specifically. I don't work with just women. I have clients that are men too, but I really find that that suits my passion because I understand the need for collaboration, and there are so many limiting factors that keeps us as women from applying for a job, applying for a promotion, making a business decision because in our head we're stuck on that, we only have 5 of 6. So it's really important for me as a coach to help individuals get over those particular limiting beliefs. And that is essentially what I focus on in my business. Beyond that, we talked a little bit, well, Wes talked a little bit about competition. In my world, competition is a really, really different word from what everybody else thinks of it as. And what I mean by that is once a month, I meet with all the coaches in the Cedar Valley. We sit down, we have like a 3-hour lunch, and we share ideas. We share what we're doing for our business, what's working, what's not working. Twice a year, I spend 2 weeks with my peers with the John Maxwell team, collaborating on how to best utilize our skills and resources. Because what we all know is 100% of the world's top athletes have a coach, but only less than 7% of the world's top executives have a coach. You don't get good on your own. It's impossible to get good on your own. And I'm passionate about coaching because I have 3 coaches that help me in various parts of my life to get where I want to go. And that is truly the fastest way to progress, is to get somebody that you can collaborate with, somebody that can help you ask those important questions to overcome the obstacles and the challenges that we all face in business and life. When it comes to pricing, I don't quote prices right off the top of my head. I usually sit down with a client and I talk about the needs, because it is not a one-size-fits-all. Some people need coaching, some people need training for their teams. So it's very different, and what that training entails could be very different from one team to the next. So when it comes down to pricing, I really work with my peers to stay in the average range for the industry and for the area. But it really comes down to what's the package that I can design that's going to best support that organization or that individual to achieve their expected outcomes. And that's really where I focus on my pricing. So with that, I guess I'll turn it over to questions at this point.
How are you currently finding your customers?
I do a lot of networking and then offering different classes to the public. So for example, starting Monday night, I am doing what's called a mastermind group, which is a group of individuals who get together and they take a really, really deep dive into a particular piece of material. So I'm going to be starting a mastermind group on Monday night over the 21 laws of leadership. And so as I do those kinds of activities, then the word tends to get out. I get referrals. I belong to several networking groups. I'm on the board of a couple of different nonprofit organizations in order to help promote what I do.
So which would be your preference, the individualized coaching or the larger training opportunities?
You know, that's a really great question. Up until probably 6 months ago, I really thought it was the group training. That's what I've been doing for 10 years with my previous organization, was really focused on the group training. But as I started to really dig more into coaching and work with more individuals on coaching, I realized training is an event, and that's great because it stimulates a lot of energy, it stimulates a lot of motivation, it inspires people to learn something new and take some action right then. But you have a little bit less control over the progression of that development. With coaching, it's a series of sessions where you get to actually see the transformation in someone. And for me, I really find it very rewarding to help somebody far enough on their journey that the changes are sustainable. So I do love the training because I'm able to impact more people more quickly. However, the coaching truly is the most rewarding for me because the results tend to be far more sustainable because it's over a period of time. And I will say selfishly, there's nothing more rewarding than sitting down with a client, having that session that's usually about halfway through our time together where things just click. They have the big light bulb moment and all of a sudden they're not the same going forward. That is truly the most exciting piece of it for me, is seeing that happen in them and seeing the change of how the coaching sessions progress after that.
So what's the biggest challenge in promoting your coaching business?
I would say the biggest challenge is that that mindset of competition and the mindset with the limiting beliefs of, I don't want anybody to know what I'm not good at. I don't want anybody to know that I'm having challenges. So many people are afraid to share that, and I was one myself. It really caused me to halt my career for a long period of time because I didn't feel comfortable reaching out saying, okay, you guys are all talking about this, but I have no idea what you're talking about. I wasn't comfortable with that, so I just kept quiet, and I pick up enough information to try and figure it out on my own. Well, that's not a very quick method, not very quick at all. So it really, really took joining the John Maxwell team for me to understand that every single one of us has something that's keeping us from reaching our potential. And for a lot of us, it's more than one thing. So it's really trying to uncover that piece that's very different for everybody.
So can you help us understand what your customer archetype looks like? What's your typical customer? You know, who's coming to you for coaching?
Sure. Right now, for the most part, it really tends to be entrepreneurs. And I probably would guess that I project a little bit differently to entrepreneurs versus corporately, because I love the fact that entrepreneurs can change on a dime and have a little more control over their world. I like to see results. I'm a very results-driven person. So to go in and do some training and then not have a decision made about the next step or not be able to really implement it how it needs to be implemented is very frustrating because I want to get the results. So the thing I love about working with entrepreneurs, and that's really where my client base is right now, is they're in charge of their world and they can make those decisions, and they're very growth-minded. I have had the misfortune to work with some clients that didn't have a growth mindset. They had a very fixed mindset, and I realized that that's sort of one of my base requirements now after a little bit of trial and error. If you have a fixed mindset and you're not open to growth, there is nothing I can do for you. You have to be a part of the process. That's pretty integral. So I generally, like I said, gear towards women because that's where my history is. That's where my basic understanding is. However, my communication style tends to be very direct, so a lot of times I tend to communicate really well with men because I can be so direct and analytical in my communication style. So, does that answer your question well enough? Okay.
Ideally, how long does someone work with you, and at what stage in the, I guess, journey does that commence?
For the coaching, it really depends. For the first part, I have a minimum requirement of 12 weeks that we work together. We work together weekly. The reason being, when it starts to get hard after the first few weeks, that's when people tend to drop out, and you're not going to get the benefit if you don't stay with it. I would say usually by week 5 or 6, and it's different for everybody, but at this point, the average is right around week 5 or 6 where enough of the walls have been broken down. There's enough honesty, openness. They're really understanding that I am a partner there to help and support, and it is a very safe environment. And so by that point, we really start to make faster forward movement and deal with some of the more challenging things. And it's very interesting to watch. There will be things that somebody brings up the first couple of times, but they're just not ready to talk about that. And so I'm a very persistent person, and I just every once in a while bring it back up to bring it out again until they get to a point where they're comfortable, because it usually ends up being that's the stop point that they really need to dive into. But because it is a safe environment, I don't beat anybody over the head about talking about something they're not ready to address yet. They really control the topic of the conversation.
What's your cycle for like follow-ups? So say you do this 12-week cycle where you're working with them and everything. What's your pattern of continual contact with some of these individuals, either from a networking perspective or for just making sure they're, because I mean, 12 weeks might establish a habit, but 16 weeks they could fall off the map. How do you gauge whether or not they're staying, I guess, engaged with your positions or
what they've learned, how
yes,
they've progressed. Yeah. Generally, I tend to really keep them in the loop for any additional training or anything I have going on. I'll have informal coffee with them or just call and touch base, usually about once a month, just keeping them in the loop. But I do find that people generally decide after the first 12 weeks. They'll go a few weeks and not have that coaching and realize that now their thinking has dropped down a little bit and because they're not being challenged. So they end up renewing their contract at that point a lot of times. And with that, you know, part of coaching is being an accountability partner in a positive way. Again, I'm not beating anybody over the head because we don't need any extra stress in our life. But at the end of every coaching session, we talk about the things that they're going to accomplish between then and when we meet again. And we start out first every coaching session talking about celebrations because it's important to celebrate the wins. And then we follow that up by how was your progress? Where did you get? And when you think about entrepreneurs, we're our own boss. So who's going to fire us? So at some point, we do need that accountability partner in order to hold our feet to the fire when we are facing some of those situations that are obstacles because of our limiting beliefs or whatever the case may be. We just need that extra accountability sometimes.
What percentage of your customers are repeat?
So far about 50 to 70%. It depends on what I have going on. Training is a little different because I haven't been as devoted to that side of the business over the last 6 months as I have coaching. So the training is just a little bit different there.
So how do you see your business growing? Are you bringing on more people? Are you, I mean, what is your goal for your business? Where do you see it going?
My goal really will be eventually to do less of the corporate training, those kinds of things, and a lot more of the coaching, and eventually scaling it to group coaching. Several of my mentors have actually moved to that, where it's a much more scalable model because you can coach. One of my mentors has a group of, I think there's 80 people in the group, which he's now going to break down and shift to another group, but they have 2-hour calls every other week instead of him spending 80 hours coaching. So that's really when it comes to coaching where the scalable model comes into is the group coaching. So that's eventually where it will go for me.
Are you training any other trainers underneath you? Obviously, you're limited under that model by your own time, or are you
Yes.
planning on adding more coaches? Or
I do plan to do that. Right now, what I have been doing is partnering with other coaches and John Maxwell team members in the Iowa area. So if there's something that isn't exactly up my alley or that I'm not super passionate about and I can refer to them, I send the business their way, vice versa. Or if something is not at a time where I could conduct the training, I generally reach out to one of them. I have had a couple of individuals ask me about coming in underneath where I'm at, but I feel like at this point I have my hands full growing it as it is, and so that's going to be an option down the road for me once I feel a little bit more comfortable with scaling it and how the progression of events will work out. So, yeah.
Perhaps this is subjective, but you know, with your coaching analogy and team, what's your wins and losses? And what's your success rate?
You know, that's pretty hard to quantify. It would really come down to just people talking to my clients and talking
Do you
to
ever
them about.
survey or
So,
do like a closing interview or something to that might help to.
Usually at the last session, we talk quite a bit about where were you when you started and where do you feel like you are now, and it's pretty significant so far. Every individual that I've worked with has experienced a pretty significant shift in not only their business, but their way of thinking. And that's really what it comes down to, is changing our way of thinking and expanding and thinking at a higher level.
Yeah, you mentioned that Iowa was dead last in what, women in business, or what's the?
Yeah, American Express did a study, and the things they took into consideration were the growth of number of women-owned businesses, and then the economic impact of those women-owned businesses, and with those two pieces combined, Iowa ranked 51.
Because I'm wondering about that, because I know in agriculture, that half the women in Iowa own farms. Are they counting them? Because, you know, how are they counting what is a business? I'm very shocked by that stat, because it doesn't seem to.
You know, I don't know, I'm assuming, because it was women-owned businesses in general, but it has to do with the growth in number. So are we expanding as business owners? Are there more business owners this year than last year? So, you know, if they're a traditional agricultural family where it's
Run
been
farms, yeah.
passed down for years and years and years, and they're the owner for 30 years, that's not really going to help support that number for growth in the number of business owners. So,
What's the best way to reach out and get a hold of you?
I have a website at www.johncmaxwellgroup.com/Heather Marquez, and I have cards if you want a card. So.
We'll include her email on the follow-up email that you'll receive.
Perfect.
Okay, we have time for one more question. Please, by now you all know what that last question is. Catherine, would you like to say it?
What do you want from us?
You know, just support in funneling women in business to me so I can be of value and help them grow their business. I mean, that's my ultimate objective, is to add that value to women in business. So just if you know somebody who needs that support and wants to collaborate in order to overcome some of those obstacles, funneling them my way, that's my biggest challenge. I have so many hours in a week in order to network and get myself out there. And I'm definitely working on the marketing. I actually took a 12-week course last fall, but there was so much information that I'm just at the tip of the iceberg for trying to implement it and maintain my actual practice. So,
All right, thank you, Heather. You'll have the sheets on your desk. If you have to fill one out for Wes, please fill that out. Also, please fill one out for Heather. If you need something Heather afterwards, feel free. Otherwise, there's more coffee. Please drink it. And thanks for coming. We'll see you guys next week for Monday Creations.